What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Dakota from Silent Theory. Thank you for your time today, man.
Yeah, no problem, Alex. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. The newest single is 6 Feet Under. What I was curious is, could this maybe serve as like a clear representation on like the direction that Silent Theory is going to sonically and lyrically, or is this just scratching the surface? Is this just like the tip of the iceberg?
Oh, that's a great question. Ever since I started, as you look at kind of where we started from the writing, Fragile Minds being kind of one of the first things I wrote with the band, and then moving to Watch Me Burn, and then Before the Storm, and then Sticks and Stones, and then 6 Feet Under, everything is kind of going up a ladder. Everything is just kind of getting a little bit better. We're getting better musically. We're getting better lyrically. This one was a little different. I didn't write this one to be a single. I don't think the band thought this would be a single. We wrote this song, and we were like, we need to release something to let people know we're still making music. And when the quarantine hit, we were like, we definitely need to release something to let people know we're still doing it. But this one, yeah, it's one of those songs that we've always been kind of an atmospheric band. We like to talk about things that were happening. And at the time of writing it, it was during the string of mass shootings from we go from probably the Route 69 Festival all the way up. We started really getting all the news broadcasts, and every headline was, new shooter here in this state, or new shooter here in that state. Regardless of the actual volume of shooting that was happening, we were just getting really sick of seeing it. So we wrote a song kind of about that feeling of how sick we were of seeing it. So I think moving forward, all of our songs are always going to kind of tackle something that directly resonates with us, that either affects the world around us or affects us directly. And we've always kind of pushed that since Delusion. So I think going forward, we're just going to keep getting better.
You led me into the next question, actually, because I know that your music is very concept driven in terms of these subject matters. Obviously it determines the lyrics, but can it also determine maybe the outcome of the music itself as well?
Oh, totally. I guess when you change your mentality on what you're writing about, your music is going to adapt with you. So, modern rock has always had this, let's tackle issues that matter the most to the metal community, or let's tackle issues that matter the most to the punk community. It's always a matter of, well, what are your views for your band? And so our views for our band are always going to be, the world around us is constantly evolving how we're going to write the music. So as we kind of push forward, I think our music is going to get better. I think we might even eventually kind of push our genre out a little bit more. We may be a little less of the modern rock and a little more towards some of the I don't want to say post metalcore or post hardcore or anything like that, because that's not really where we're going. But I really want to change the sonic sounds of our choruses. I want them to be a lot bigger, but I also want to maintain the statements and keeping them grounded in how we feel. I don't ever want to write a song that's just generic, it's going to reach everybody for the same thing. I want people to ask hard questions when they listen to our music moving forward. And I don't think we tackled that as much in Delusions, but I want to start tackling it now.
That makes total sense. And I mean, heavy times call for heavy measures as well, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I hate it when I feel like we're just not heavy enough or something like that, because it's never our goal to make a heavy song or anything like that. I've always grown up just I listen to so much stuff that is you would never expect to hear on my playlist. You go through my playlist, you'd be like, why is he listening to this? I had Lady Antebellum on the other day. I think I was rocking some Florence and the Machine. I dig technical music. I dig skill, a lot of skill that takes so much of your effort to push on. That's kind of where we're going now. We're all just listening to different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be amazed on what some artists play. Like Demi Lovato, I think her favorite band is Job for a Cowboy. So,
right.
or I think Dimmu Borgir. So you'd be amazed on what's on some artist playlists. That's actually a series that I thought people should do. Is what's on your playlist, and they just they make you look at every artist on there and guess which celebrity listens to that.
Could you imagine if Phil Anselmo had Katy Perry on his playlist? You'd love to know what's going on with some people.
I've heard even more obscure stories than that, so there you go. But now, obviously, do you like to leave the music open to interpretation, or is really the goal for Silent Theory to really inform the listener? And the reason why I ask that is because, I've listened to a lot of music that either had political or personal subject matter, and, being a little kid, at like 5 years old, discovering Rage Against the Machine. I wasn't aware of, any of the politics that they were singing about. I just enjoyed the hell out of the music.
What is this machine they're raging against? Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, so like, is there also room for your music to be open to interpretation as well?
Now, this is my personal opinion on what we write. Like, if I told everybody what Fragile Minds is about, it would blow everybody's mind, and it would kind of ruin the song for them, I'm sure. Like, they would be like, oh, it's about mental health and about anxiety and this and that. And if I was to be like, no, it's about something else, it might ruin their experience listening to the song. And so I'd never want to do that. This is the first, like, with 6 Feet Under, this is the first song I really focal pointed something that you can't take it a different way. Like, a lot of people have been like, well, it's kind of a song about the political climate right now, which it really does work its way into that, but it was written about the mentality of a shooter. It's about the mentality of somebody behind the gun. It's not even about gun control. Like, it has nothing to do with gun control. It's just about how we've evolved our hate to the point where we get so upset and we get so transfixed on what our issues are, and we get radicalized by like radio stations or we go onto the internet and we get radicalized by some like 8chan channel, and then we go and shoot up a mall because that's how we feel.
Yeah, it's about what's in a killer's hands, not what's in their heart.
Totally, not about the gun they're holding. It's about their brain behind it. And so that song was focal pointed. But then you've got something like Watch Me Burn, which is very political. And I've seen people say, well, this song reminds me of suicide. This song reminds me of drug addiction. And who am I to ever say, no, that's not what that song is about? Even though I may have written it with a different mentality, I think once the song is out, it's no longer mine to determine what it's about. It's now up to you to determine what you think the song is about.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that. I was having a discussion, I believe it was with Josh from the rock band Bad Flower. And
I love Bad Flower.
Yeah. And he likes, we had a long discussion about this, and obviously this is everybody's opinions, but like some people say that saying something is open to interpretation, like when you just immediately jump to that conclusion, sometimes it comes off as a cop-out for an artist not explaining their work in a way.
Totally. They left it too vague, right?
Yeah. And regardless of how metaphorical or literal it could be. So I'd imagine, like, if a fan comes up to you and says, what were you thinking, or what was the meaning behind this, you're not going to hesitate on explaining it as well, right?
Right, not at all. And I think that's cool about our genre, is that we can make a song that's fairly vague, and people will be like, oh yeah, gung-ho, I just want to listen to it because it's a really awesome rock song. But then we could also write something that's a little more focal pointed like this, and people are like, hey, I can dig this direction too. I like having both worlds there, but I would never blow up somebody's idea of a song and they'd be like, hey, I think Watch Me Burn is about this, and I'm like, hey, you're an idiot, it's actually about this. Like, that would be terrible.
Yeah. Of course. When it comes to like getting inspired to write, being that like you have 6 Feet Under, that was a very obviously it's impossible not to notice the subject matter in which you wrote it about. But like, does inspiration come out of the blue sometimes? Like, does it just a spark, or do you almost kind of have to like put yourself in a certain realm in order for like the ideas for the song structure and arrangements to come through?
That's a good question. I think if you ask other songwriters, they're going to tell you kind of a mix of both. With me, I get hit really hard with kind of that. Ooh, I'm really motivated to write right now, so I'll go out on my porch and I will just sit there for a couple hours and I will write. But then there are other times where I just want to kind of like browse YouTube, or I want to browse what's going on, and I'll look at a documentary. Like, I was watching a documentary with a retired Marine from Desert Storm, which was more recent, and then a retired Marine from World War II. And their conversation just kind of blew me away. Like, it was like his version of what he missed the most about being in the military versus the World War II veterans, like, missed the most about his versions of being in the military, in two different perspectives. And that inspired me to write, a song. And it was just one of those things where I was like, I wasn't expecting that day to write something cool. It just happened to me. But then there are other times where, yeah, I'm going to be like, I need to write today. And so I need to put myself in a mentality that's like, gotta write.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you're working on a song for hours or days or weeks.
Weeks.
Yeah. If you're Tool, 13 years. So, like, I mean, do you, that's been a joke that I've been repeating so much. I think my viewers are sick of me bringing that up, but it is true.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. But, like, do you find it maybe, like, the longer that you're working on a song, the harder it is to kind of maintain that moment from when that creative spark initially came?
Totally. Absolutely. And then, like, the only kind of reference I can have to this is, like, Fragile Minds. I got really inspired to write it. I wrote all the lyrics down in one afternoon. I brought it to the guys. We didn't revise it one bit. That was the song you got. I worked hard on the song, but it wasn't like I spent weeks and weeks trying to iron it out. Whereas, like, Sticks and Stones, I spent, like 2 or 3 days on a line just one line to make it perfect, to make it go really well. And I don't know if that was just because I had maybe some writer's block at the time, or I just had a little bit more of a motivation to write what I was writing with Fragile Minds. But there's always a difference, and I feel like when I get it, when it really rolls on me, and I don't take too long with it, it's usually a better product. When I take too long with it, I overanalyze it and I overcorrect it, and it just becomes one of those things where they're like, it was good to start with. Why did you destroy it so much? Why did you overanalyze it so much?
Yeah, and aren't you also worried too, like the stuff you like, if there's a song or maybe even a part that you leave out, it'll be like a B-side one day and just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
Oh god, that's how I feel all the time. I'm like, the one song I'm gonna hate is gonna be the one that blows us up, right? Like, it'll be like, I think I heard a interview with Seether where they were talking to Sean Morgan, and he was talking about how he never expected, I think it was Broken, to be their big hit, and he actually kind of didn't like the song so much, if I have the interview correct. And then it became, one of their biggest songs. It's like the Oasis, right? Oasis became their biggest song, but it was their hated song.
Yeah. Well, that's the case with a lot of bands. Like, I was interviewing Mike Nine from the band I Hate God, and he told me that he saw the band Europe play, and everybody knows what their big hit is, and they had to play the final countdown twice. They opened with it and they ended it. They opened with it and they ended with it.
Don't you wonder if that band just wants to like cut it out of their set list and just see what people would say?
There's a lot of, I think I'm not in a band, so I could be talking very ignorantly, but like I'm pretty sure there's a lot of bands who would love to crop out their greatest hit from the set list and go into some deep cuts. Slash, I think, can't stand Sweet Child of Mine anymore. So.
Oh God, could you? Like, if you've been playing it this long, this many years, and
Well,
no,
I have another issue with that song is that I've worked in a guitar store for 10 years, and that is one of the songs that every beginner guitar player who can't even tune the damn thing resorts to. So, like,
what's the forbidden riff? Is that Stairway to Heaven?
I call it the 5 S's of death: Stairway to Heaven, Sweet Child of Mine, Smells Like Teen Spirit, Smoke on the Waters, and Sweet Home Alabama.
Jeez, you just took all the ones I learned when I was on guitar. Yeah. And I can't play anything when I go to Guitar Center.
Well, there you stay the hell out of my store. Yeah, but
that's totally true.
To each his own. To each his own. But you ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview now?
Sure, brother.
How do you know when a song is done?
Ooh, I think every single songwriter has a different way of determining if their song is done. Usually, my song's not done until I get into the studio and I sing it for Jimmy, and that's our producer most of the time, our engineer. And Jimmy's like, I kind of want to tweak this, or that doesn't sound so good, or like for me, it's like I need a collaboration of people to kind of come around the song and be like, no, this doesn't sound so good, or this sounds good. Different ears listening to it. Whereas another songwriter, he may just have that perfect ending line, and he finished it, and he put it in his notebook, and he's like, I'm done with this song, moving on to the next one. For me, that's hard, because even if I finish all the lyrics for a song, that song may not be done for me. I may go back to that song and be like, this is a better line, or this determines what I'm thinking a little bit better, and I'll change that song. So for me, maybe a song is never finished until it's like laid down and it's done, like physically played back on the soundboard for me. But that's totally to every other songwriter's determination. I'm sure other people are just like, it's done when I finish writing it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. There's always so many. You can either be so like deep with it, or just give the most concrete, shallow answer. In the end, it's never right. So.
Absolutely, yeah. You can't win, you can't lose.
Yeah. Being that your music, like, I don't know if I would really like. Would you be cool if Silent Theory is like referred to as like a conceptual band in a way?
Oh, I mean. No, I wouldn't be bothered by that at all.
Yeah, because like being that you're very influenced by the concepts that you sing about, but do you need music before you have like the lyrics itself? Because I'd imagine nothing could be more heartbreaking, right, than having like the best lyrics ever, but then them going one syllable over or under the actual arrangement.
Right. Well, I think that comes down to your skill as a songwriter too. Like if you have those lyrics down and they're just a little off, or their beat is just a couple beats too fast on one particular verse or one phrase. I think the ability to change that word to still get your idea across is what's really skillful for me. But the question of do I need music or do I write by myself, it was in the beginning when I first was with Silent Theory, it was I needed music. I needed their music to write the lyrics so that it would flow so well. Because in my head, I was probably writing something a little more like Dillinger Escape Plan for them, and they were writing something a little more Breaking Benjamin for me. So when I would get those two things, I would try to like push them together, and before it was like, stop screaming so much. So I would stop screaming and I'd work on singing. But now it's like, even without music, I'm still writing these really cool melodies. So I'll actually record a melody on my phone through like my voice recorder, and I'll send it to Scott. Like I'll just send like this acapella like BS melody to him and see if he can work with that. Like see if there's a guitar piece that he had in his head that could work with that. But I also love it when he sends me music that's just raw and I have a chance to write to it too. So it's really both. But I think as I've evolved, I really enjoy writing and then seeing if I can fit it into what they have. And I think that'll work really well going forward because that's what happened with Sticks and Stones and 6 Feet Under. Now, my personal opinion on 6 Feet Under is it's not my favorite of my lyrical writings. Like, I know that I kind of tackled it really well, but I still wish that I had done it a little different. Whereas Sticks and Stones, I think that's one of our better ones to date as far as flow. And that one was done with me writing verses without their music. Mm-hmm. So it's totally up in the air. It totally depends.
Yeah, it sounds like Silent Theory is a great collaborative effort, which I think is awesome.
All five of us contribute to every single song. Now, I do a bulk of the lyrics. They'll never argue that. But when my lyrics are done, I send it to them. I let them pick it apart. They can destroy it. They can be like, dude, this sucks. Like, rewrite. And I will rewrite. Like, it will not matter. I still consider myself like the new kid in this band because I was added in 2014, but the band's been together since 2008. Oh, wow. So for me, I've never been an ego. So anytime they're like, hey, this isn't good, I'm like, dude, you're right. It's not good. I'm gonna fix it right up. So, yeah, no, I absolutely need the other four members to help me.
Yeah, criticism, whether we love it or hate it, criticism is, like, essential. Like, it's needed. Like,
if people aren't criticizing you, you're not doing good enough. Because if everybody loves it, you have nothing to work on.
Yeah, of course. And like the most common like thing is like a damned if do, damned if don't situation. If you're a very experimental band where you have many different styles, they'll say your music is inconsistent. But if you're a very consistent band, they'll say your music is repetitive. There's like no like if ands or there's like you can't please everybody. You achieve the most artistic freedom when you say that you can't please everybody.
Find me a band that everybody loves. Find me a band that every single person in the world loves. And maybe the closest you'll get is Beatles. Maybe. I can't think of any band in the world that doesn't have like a group of people who are like, nah, they're not that great, or nah, they suck. Yeah. Even for people who like the metal scene or things that are a little bit heavier, like the Ramones are not loved by everybody. Like as a matter of fact, there's a large group of people that do not like the Ramones or think they're overrated. So I think it's.
And there are people who will hate on a band just because they're that popular. Like
exactly.
So you can't win. There's no such thing as an artist that wins.
No such thing.
Yep. I have two more questions for you. But when it comes to playing the material live, is there maybe a similar creative energy into playing your material live as opposed to when you're in the studio? Is there any similarity to that? Or is it almost like a separate art altogether that you have to master?
Oh, I like combining them together. Like to me, they're the same. Like, if you can sing in a studio, which isn't always the case. There are some singers who sing in the studio who can't sing their stuff live. And I think that's when you're pushing your boundary in studio. You're reaching for ranges you can't always hit. You're doing diaphragmatic power that you're not always going to remember to do live. So for me, I have to have people tell me, hey, can you do this live? Can you sing this live? And if I can't, I will not put it on a studio like album. I won't record it. So everything that I can do live is what I will sing in the studio. So for me, it has to go hand in hand. I have to be able to give you a good performance when I perform this live because we're still an unsigned band. We're still bands that are basically trying to get attention from anybody. So our live show has to be on point. Mm-hmm. We can't just have good studio music. We have to have a great performance as well. So our biggest gloat most of the time is that we really outperformed the band after us or the band before us or whatever. Those things really cherish us. We don't really care how our studio album gets received. We care the most about how people like our show and leave our show thinking, oh, these guys sounded great.
Yeah. Well, I've had this discussion before, like, watching a band play live is amazing, and I really enjoy it, and I'm sure, and I'd imagine that the artists love it too. Why else would they be doing it? But like, is there really anything creative about playing the material live in terms of like you're taking the material on the album and bringing it into a live presence? Is there really anything essence of creativity that comes from it? I was always curious about that.
Totally. We did an acoustic show with all of our live album stuff, and the way that we broke down "Watch Me Burn" and "Fragile Minds" acoustically sounded nothing like the studio. And people that were in the audience were like, wow, this is really cool. This sounds really different. And even now, like, I sing certain parts differently because I think that they sounded better when I sang them live than I did when I did them in the studio. Or I'll scream a part that wasn't screamed in the album, but I want to scream live. So I give people a new taste of the song when I do it live, and I feel like there is creativity to it. And there's also, like, you're always caught off guard by something that might happen on stage, like maybe something will blow in somebody's tube, or a string will break, and then having that creativity and that skill to actually work around it and not even show any attention to it whatsoever. We have so many malfunctions at every show, and usually they're mine. Like, I have pulled the mic cord out of my mic every single time I've sang Fragile Minds, and I use it now as an opportunity to let the crowd kind of sing it for me. And it's just a really bad way of kind of rolling out of your fall.
I guess it's a good way to forget the lyrics.
Yeah, no, it really is. And so I really enjoy doing it live because I like the kind of variations on songs that we do. Like, some of the songs don't even sound the same anymore, the way we play them live.
Mm-hmm. And the final question I wanted to ask you is the metal scene in Idaho? Again, you're not only the first band from Idaho I've ever interviewed, but you're, I think, the first person I ever spoke to from that state, which is incredible. And I think so. That's another state I could check off the list. I think there's 5 left. But when it comes, is there like a scene? You guys are from Moscow, Idaho, right?
Right. The Panhandle, right at the top.
Oh wow! So like right on the Canadian border.
Well, I think we're only like 2 hours from the Canadian border, but yeah, we're up there at the top, right next to Pullman, Washington. So right there on the border where Washington and Idaho kind of meet. Okay. Is right there at the top.
Yeah. Is there kind of like a scene in Idaho that you guys are associated with, or is the goal really not much?
It's so sad, man. Like we've tapped out Idaho as far as we can. Like Boise, the capital where I grew up, you know, we played the Knitting Factory down there, and it was one of the greatest shows I'd gotten to play. But other than that, there was no venue for us to go and play that we could be in front of a lot of people. There was a local venue in Lewiston, Idaho, which is about 45 minutes away from our town in Moscow. And that place we would sell out pretty regularly because that was the only place we played that was close to home. So anytime we'd play it, people would come, and that was great. But we had to go to Spokane. We had to go to Seattle. We have to go, you know, to Utah. We have to go to Montana. Like, those are the places. I've never played a show in Moscow, Idaho. Wow. I've never played a show in my hometown. And that comes from the fact that there literally is no scene, and whatever scene you think there is up there, it's like the folk kind of hipster chant bands, you know, the ones that stomp and play the fiddle and play all kinds of 1,000 instruments on stage and has like 2 singers with beards. Yeah. Like, that's what you get up there. Okay. And even those guys are people from Canada that have come down. Like, they're not even from Moscow. So, no, Idaho itself, I mean, other than Built to Spill, I don't think there's ever been a band that came out of Idaho that was like a Billboard charter or anything like that. So yeah, there's no scene. Yeah,
I got a bone to pick with your Knitting Factory too, because we have a venue here in Brooklyn called the Knitting Factory as well. And every time I see a band announce, do you know? Because I always shout out every show that's coming to New York City. Do you know how many times I've mistakenly promoted the show at Knitting Factory in Idaho, thinking that it was a show in Brooklyn? Like,
because there's only like 4, right? There's like one in LA. One here, and there's like 2 in Idaho.
Yeah,
or one in Washington, one in Idaho.
Yeah, and I've shared the one in Idaho many times.
I'm sure they appreciate it. But,
yeah,
you know, it's not like they're bringing fans from your area over there. But I mean, hey, they're going to take any publicity they can, I'm sure.
If anybody from New York traveled to Idaho because I shared it on my page by accident,
just because of a show,
I will promote their shows every event that they have in history from now on, because that would be amazing.
If that happens, I will message Randy personally and say that you deserve a cut of every New York attendee.
Deal.
You have the show ID at the door. If you're from New York, guess what? Alex is getting some money.
All right, deal. You know what? When shows start happening again,
right.
I'll hold you up to that. But I'd imagine being like the only band in your town, that has to help you stand out a little bit more, right?
You'd think. We always thought that being an Idaho band would be kind of like a cool thing. Like, it would just be kind of a niche. Like, it would be like, oh, these guys are from Idaho. That's pretty cool. But for the most part, no. I mean, when you're from, like, the Pacific Northwest, anything Northwest, it's going to be basically monopolized by California. Anything Orange County, anything coming out of California is going to get the view. But being from Idaho, it's so difficult to be seen by the eye. You know, the world just calls it the eye. But, you know, you go to Seattle, it's completely different. There's a huge scene in Seattle. People get picked up from Seattle all the time. And that's only 8 hours away. So you'd think, you know, being from Idaho, we'd have this kind of cool draw. You know, this is an Idaho band, but no, there's nothing.
Okay, so it's not like you're going to be like Slipknot and call your next album Idaho anytime soon or anything like that.
I always thought that was so great. Like, they came out of Iowa, and it's such a cool, like, you know, premise for a band. Like, those guys just blew it up being from a smaller area. And you'd think that, you know, other bands could do it too, but unless we put on some masks and boiler jumpsuits, man, we're probably not going to get that view.
Well, never say never. Never say never.
Never say never. Yep. I'm a believer.
Yep. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Just, you know, obviously thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named, you know, obviously shows are not happening at the moment, but when things do start picking up and getting back to normal again, I imagine we'll see you guys quite on the road a bit. Can you maybe make a stop in New York City?
Oh, man, we'd love to. We know that the East Coast is one of the big ones. For me, I've always wanted to play in New York, Boston, Florida, even going down to Florida. Like, I will go to Florida. We've always wanted to hit the East Coast, but we've never had a chance to. We went and did West Virginia 2 years ago for a huge metal fest there. That was the farthest we had gotten, and that was just, you know, over to you guys. So we would have loved to go up and hit New York because we've never played it before. So, yeah, you give me the invite. We're coming.
Awesome. Well, we'll make that happen. But, Dakota, thank you so much for your time. Everybody, we are here with Dakota of Silent Theory. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.